I just came up with something else you're probably not gonna want to hear though.
What
It gotta be like you and I having a conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like yeah, yeah, yeah. Alright, so what up, good people? Good people. Today is the first episode of the good news from Uncle Nephew. That's brother Ed. You can call him Unc.
That's brother Reb. You can call him nephew.
So, since we in East Africa, Ethiopia, that is, our first topic title,
Oh shit.
star of the show for our first episode is going to be East Africa and why the world don't talk about East Africa. Because we hear a lot about West Africa, right? The
Correct.
slaves coming in from West Africa.
Yep.
But we don't hear nothing about East Africa. What about East Africa?
East Africa is left out of the equation, even though basically it's the foundation.
So, and that's my question. Is it because there's nothing in East Africa? Or is it because East Africa is the very thing that the Westerns have their foundations built off of?
True.
So that's what we finna figure out today. That's what we finna figure out today.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over a couple of things and point out to you what's basically the things that occurred in East Africa that is still going on today. This is what this podcast is about. Me and my nephew just having a good conversation about the things that basically occurred in East Africa and how East Africa translate into the last days of the Bible prophecy.
So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hey. As y'all can see, it's sprangling a little bit. It's sprangling a little bit. But we gonna try to keep it going. I'm finna pass it to Unc so he can go on to give y'all the topics for today. Give y'all the topics for this podcast.
All right, my fellow people, I'm just going to go over a couple of things that basically touch on the reason why East Africa is so important, especially in these last days as we try to restore it, because we're going to speak about restoring it. We're going to also speak on the siege of Magdala that basically happened in 1868, where the British and their forces went in and basically took gold manuscripts and scrolls from East Africa. We're also going to touch on, my brother's going to touch on
The countries that make up East Africa and their resources. We also gonna touch on the COINTELPRO and why this is a part of the problem, that why we don't know about these things. Right?
correct. It didn't load.
So let's get into it.
Not too hard. Damn, they hooking this
It's
shit.
coming down.
Look at this shit. Yo, I ain't even see this. That's dope. That's dope as shit. Them new buildings look fly as shit.
New buildings. But let's try to continue. Now, the first topic is East Africa and their countries. That the West Africans, I mean not West Africans, that the Westerns make money off of. So East Africa comprises of 20 nations. Most notably
the name, but I just saw on
Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Somalia, and South Sudan. While local populations are building these economies, Western nations like the US have historically enriched themselves using this region's raw commodities, cash crops, and emerging tech capabilities. Pay attention now. Now I'm finna read off a couple of the raw commodities, cash crops, and what I was saying, emerging tech. Read off a couple of those things and how much the East African country makes off of it,
Watch your step.
and
Watch
how
your
much the Western, like the US, makes off of it.
facts.
All right, so some of the cash crops from the East: coffee and tea. East Africa, specifically Ethiopia and Kenya, is the birthplace of Arabica coffee and produces world-renowned teas. These agricultural exports fuel multi-billion-dollar American industries.
Go ahead though.
Hey,
Watch out for that hole,
don't
nigga.
don't 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 mind the. We gonna get it. Just know we gonna get it. But for example, Starbucks and global coffee traders. Starbucks and global coffee traders. When did I get a I hope you're not looking for three people. Nah. You know, you're not looking for three people to come and be like, hey, now let's see how much money does Kenya and Ethiopia make off coffee and tea. Together, Kenya and Ethiopia generate over 4.7 billion annually from their coffee and tea exports, with Ethiopia dominates the region's coffee market as the historic birthplace of Arabic coffee beans.
Turned it right back off too.
Arabica. Kenya is one of the world's leading economic powerhouse for tea production. Now, how much money does the American industries make off coffee and teas? The United States generates over $121 billion annually. $121 billion annually from the retail and food service sales of coffee and tea. The vast majority of this revenue comes from coffee, which is one of
What's up, brother?
the most widely consumed
Can I order
beverages
over here?
in the country.
I want the falafel
But coffee
sandwich
comes
on the
from
brown
Kenya. Coffee and tea come from
brown
Ethiopia
roll
and
with
Kenya,
fries,
but the U.S.
salt and
makes
pepper.
more money off of it.
There you go. You know it.
Let's keep going. My brother stopped in this shop so he can get him some falafel.
Oh my goodness.
It's really a vlog and a podcast. Now we got some of the precious metals and minerals coming from East Africa. Countries like Tanzania possesses vast reserves of gold. Meanwhile, neighboring central/eastern countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, a member of the East African community, supply the coltan and cobalt essential for manufacturing smartphones. These things, these things, laptops and electric vehicles like Tesla. Like who? Like Tesla in the US. So let's see how much money the East African countries like Tanzania and Congo make off of these things. And let's see how much the US makes off these things. All right, so Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, generate tens of billions of dollars annually from these minerals.
Sounds like a lot.
But the DRC vastly out earns Tanzania due to its near monopoly on global cobalt and coltan. But what about the US? Now, listen to this. The United States generates approximately 10 billion to 11 billion annually from domestic production of gold, while making virtually nothing from domestic mining of cobalt and coltan due to an extreme reliance of foreign imports. So they don't make money off mining it because they got the imports of it. However, these three minerals directly fuel American downstream manufacturing industries, electronics, aerospace, and defense
Thank you. That was fast.
that generate over 4 trillion in economic value. So the US makes 4 trillion off of those minerals that they get from East Africa, Tanzania, and Congo. Let's continue. That is cool. But let's continue. Time to go. Time to go. So now we on agriculture and cut flour out of East Africa. Kenya is a global leader in exporting fresh cut flowers to Europe and the US. Additionally, Tanzania and Uganda supply agricultural products and fish that support US food supply chains. They claim that Africa don't have food, but the food in Africa is used to supply Europe and US food supply chain.
Make that make sense.
Huh? But they should at least be giving them some money off for it, right? It should be more than them. But let's see. Kenya generates over $30 billion annually for its broader agriculture sector and roughly 845 million specifically from cut flowers, while Tanzania generates over 22 billion from agriculture and around 28 million from cut flower exports. Kenya is dominant global powerhouse. I don't even know how to read that. What they say?
What is that?
Floriculture?
Oh, floriculture, yeah.
Floriculture?
Like flowers. Yep, floriculture.
Okay, floriculture. Like flower.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whereas Tanzania has a robust overall agricultural sector, but a much smaller developing cut flower footprint. Now let's see how much money the US makes off of this. The broader US food and agriculture industry generates 10.4 trillion. They was 800 million. This is 10.4 trillion off the crops that they get from East Africa. But there's no food here. In total economic output, while domestic cut flower sales contribute approximately 350 million annually to to the economy. We got two more resources to go over. Tourism and wildlife. The iconic ecosystems of the Serengeti in Tanzania and the Masai Mara. I hope I'm saying that right. In Kenya are global tourism magnets. Revenue from these sectors frequently support international travel companies and conversation funds in the West. In the West. Now, let's see how much money Kenya and Tanzania make off of their land, these parks.
Mm-hmm.
So, Serengeti, man, I hope I'm saying these right. Serengeti and Masai Mara ecosystem generates hundreds of millions of dollars annually through park fees, accommodations, local wildlife conservation models, serving as the main economic engine for both Tanzania and Kenya tourism. Now, let's see how much America makes, the US makes.
Oh,
So
sir.
it was hard for me to find a clear number. It was hard for me to find a clear number. I had to switch my question up a couple of different times. So this is the question that I end up asking. How much revenue from Serengeti and Masai Mara tourism and wildlife supports international travel conversations? International travel companies and conversation funds in the West. That was the question that I had to end up asking. Up to 70 to 90% of safari tourism revenue leaks out of East Africa to international travel agencies, airlines, and foreign-owned lodge operators. Only a fraction remains of local communities or anti-poaching, highlighting the deep challenge of tourism economic leakage and balancing economic growth. So the money that Kenya and Tanzania make off their tourism, 70 to 90% of that, well, this is East African tourism, period. But 70 to 90% of the revenue that's made off of East African tourism, leakage into the pockets of the Westerns, of the Western powers. But let's continue. The last resource that we're going to go over today, before I pass the mic to my brother, Ed, you can call him up, is tech and services. Kenya, acting as a regional financial and tech hub, has built a booming mobile money and fintech sector in Pisa, drawing foreign investments and partnerships from U.S. tech giants. From U.S. tech giants. Now, why do they want to invest in tech from Kenya? Let's find out. All right, y'all. So, yeah, I see we got new clothes on. So, it's a new day. But it's time to finish this podcast and this vlog. Time to finish. So, where we left off at was why America is so invested in Kenya's tech and services. So, the tech giants that invest in Kenya's tech is Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Netflix.
They want the data.
But like my brother said, they want the data. What data do they want? Why are they investing in Kenya's tech? Let's get straight to it. So, direct aid for data and monetization. A newer avenue of non-traditional economic value comes from strategic government pacts. The U.S. signed a $2.5 billion five-year health agreement with Kenya. Under the terms of this and similar global health agreements, the U.S. provides funding in exchange for commitments to provide up to 25 years of patent data and disease pathogens.
No, they want something.
No, they want something. What they want the DNA for? They're using it for what they using it for.
They're using it supposedly for pandemics and different diseases that occur in different in Kenya. They want to document it. They want documented diseases of things that happen in Kenya. Pathology report basically showing the pathogens, what they call it. They want that information on all the Kenyans. So they want to know their health records. Just like America, they got all our health records. You know everything about us.
Using it to benefit them more than it is benefiting us. Analysts note that this data holds immense, how you say that? Propriety?
Oh, uh, what do you call it?
Propriety.
Proprietary.
Proprietary value for U.S. artificial intelligence, biomedical, and pharmaceutical sectors. So it sounds like Kenya and other countries are being used for testing. That sound about right?
Yep.
That sound about right.
So if the United States introduce a virus in the country, they'll get real-time data on how it's affecting people. I
Hmm.
wouldn't trust that. Africa need their own CDC, the Center of Disease Control. They need their own. They don't need nothing to do with the Western world. You got too many people over here producing things that rely on the Western world to give them any kind of aid.
And one thing, I know when we was trying to cross the border to come into Ethiopia from Kenya, they were saying that the U.S. bring a lot of diseases over there.
Yep.
So they was checking us. But the U.S. tell us that the Africans bring a lot of diseases to the states.
What's that virus that they just had?
Yellow fever.
They tried to put all the people in Kenya.
Yeah, they try to put out the 6 people from the U.S. in Kenya.
And Kenya don't see that.
Oh, they see it. They told us.
Yeah, they did.
They tried to tell us the U.S. is bringing diseases over. Some people started dancing. I guess they thought the camera was faced their way. But now, since we are done talking about some of the countries that make up East Africa and their resources that the Western uses, now it's time to pass the mic to my brother, to to let him speak on what you speaking on right now.
Siege of Mandela and the Berlin Conference about this scramble for Africa, how the European nations divided up Africa.
Yes, sir. Let's get into it. Show a little bit of the scene. Show a little bit of the scene as we walking through. Now, since we done got the resources in East Africa that the Westerns use, we can't say that there's nothing in East Africa for the West. Now we finna figure out how much more does the West have their hand in East Africa.
This is how we're going to do this, y'all. We're going to go over when these people decided to, the Westerners that is, decided to go into Africa, European nations, and this is when they divided it up. I'm sure so many of y'all heard of the Berlin Conference. Is my mic on? No.
Say something now.
Mic check. We're going to go over now in this podcast/blog on how the European nations divided up Africa and when did they decide to do it. They decided to do it when Menelik died in 1913. We even have an article from the Washington Times that reads, "When the king dies, look out, and he's sick." It goes on to say, Menelik of Abyssinia, the most democratic of all monarchs, is seriously ill, say dispatches from capital of his empire to Rome. This is a letter that they sent to Rome. And if he should die, an outbreak menacing the safety of European representatives would likely be followed by a fierce scramble among the powers for his rich domain. So when Menelik passed, they knew that they were going to go into Africa. They knew that they was going to basically scatter Africa because he was a leader unlike any other leader. He didn't go for anything, and they knew he wouldn't go for them being in Africa, trying to divide up his nation while he was alive. So I'm gonna go on to read this too, and it reads: From out of the east come tidings that the lion conqueror of the tribe of Judah, Menelik, chosen of God, King of kings of Ethiopia, as he styles himself, lies seriously ill. Like vultures peering from the treetop, the nations of Europe are regarding the sick lion. But that is not all. Should Menelik die, which is not at all unlikely, according to dispatches from Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia, Abyssinia at the time, to Rome, grave disturbances are promised in the struggle for succession. So basically, they came in. These are the countries that basically came into Africa during the Berlin Conference, or decided to basically divide up Africa at the Berlin Conference. I'm gonna give you a couple of names.
But before, you gotta listen. This king is recognized as the lion,
The lion.
the king of kings. Who else is recognized as that? We know Christ to be recognized as that in the Bible. But we don't see that title nowhere else in the world. But here, pay attention.
So the Berlin Conference had 14 attendees. Excuse me. The countries that shape Africa's fate. Crazy, right? So we got Germany, the host and colonial power at the time, Britain, the colonial superpower, France, the rival colonial, Portugal, the old colonial veteran, Belgium, the controversial newcomer, because they were new to the scene at the time, Spain, the late but present player, because they came late, Italy, the ambiguous aspirant, Austria, Denmark, the Netherlands, Russia, the United States, the Ottoman Empire, and there was some uninvited guests too that showed up. But these countries went in with with the mindset to actually split up Africa after Menelik passed away, which I heard the lion conqueror of Judah. So they didn't want to come when basically he was alive. These are the curses that were put on our people, that basically, because we disobeyed God, Africa is no longer standing as this superpower in the world, because basically the Europeans came in and divided it up amongst themselves. And this is leading us to the day where my brother went over, with all the natural resources leaving Africa, and then them having the audacity to say that Africa is hungry or starving, when most of our food and resources from Africa go to the European nations to feed them. Without Africa, they wouldn't even survive. I'll go ahead and say that. They wouldn't have nothing without Africa. Hey y'all, we're gonna pick up now at the siege of Magdala. Please forgive the noise in the background. We are outside on a bench in Addis Ababa. Bole Bubula. All right. So the siege of Magdala, which happened in April of 1868, was a punitive expedition led by British General Sir Robert Napier against Ethiopian Emperor Tewodros II. Triggered by the imprisonment of British diplomats, Napier marched 400 miles inland with 13,000 troops and 44 elephants. The emperor committed suicide during the final assault, meaning Emperor Tewodros II unalived himself, according to docs. The expedition culminated on April 13th, 1868, when heavily armed British and Indian forces stormed the mountain fortress of Magdala, located approximately 390 miles from the Red Sea or the Red Sea coast. It claimed that Emperor Tewodros imprisoned Europeans, missionaries, and diplomats after Queen Victoria failed to respond to his letter, requesting military and technical assistance. In response, Britain orchestrated a massive logistical operation at an estimated cost of 9 million pounds. Wow. After the defeat of Oragi and the subsequent storming of Magdala, the emperor refused to surrender and took his own life. With a pistol, the British forces successfully rescued all European hostages, but proceeded to heavily loot the fortress, taking vast amounts of sacred Ethiopian manuscripts, religious artifacts, and treasures, many of which remain in foreign institutions today. The British also took his young son, Prince Alamayu, and his wife, Empress Truork Woob. The extensive logistical battle and political maneuvers of this campaign are documented in resources like ASMEA, The Siege of Magdala, and The Battle of Magdala, which is a Wikipedia document. But these all occurred in 1868, and the British wouldn't have stepped foot in Africa had they not had guns. They had guns. This would allow them to actually go into Magdala and take it over. I mean, Emperor Tewodros and the Abyssinians used lions, spears, cannons, and some of the things that they from got the guns from Europe themselves. In fact, the very gun that Tewodros used to unalive himself was said to have come from Queen Victoria herself as a gift. So this is what left us with Africa first being taken and infiltrated by the European nations and their allies. And the second time, because we're going to go from basically Tewodros II to Emperor Menelik, which he died in 1913. Emperor Tewodros ruled from 1855 to 1868 when he committed suicide during the Siege of Magdala. Excuse me. His reign was considered the modernization of Ethiopia, and it brought decentralization to Zemen Mesafint, which is the era of the princes. The two that came up after Petros is Techo Georgius II, that was an emperor, and he was from 1868 to 1871. And then there was Johannes IV that preceded him, and he was from 1871 to 1889. During his reign, he successfully defended Ethiopia against a large-scale Egyptian invasion. So a lot of times they were fighting amongst other tribes in Africa. So the first European nation to come over was Europe, which was Britain. And Britain came over during the Siege of Magdala. And after that, we had Menelik. And of course, Menelik was emperor uh, up and from, let's see, he was from 1889 until 1913, which was his death. And this caused the scramble for Africa, where the European nations came into Africa and basically divided up Africa and its resources.
Now, if you paying attention, my brother Unc just read off kings that sat on the throne of David. Now, this sounds like the promise that's given to David that there will be that there will never lack a man to sit on the throne. He also talked about the era of princes, where there was no king, there was no king's sit, there was no king seen fit to sit on the throne at that time. This is a time in Ethiopian history. This is also talked about in the Bible, in Judges. So we got to be paying attention when we listening to these things. We have kings who sat on the throne of David in real time, and
We had a queen that stated that she wished. Am I going there with you? All right, I lose.
so we got kings who sat on the throne in real time. We have the era of princes, where there was no king to sit on this throne. We have the prophecy of Christ, the second coming of Christ, coming to restore this throne. And we also have records of the Queen Victoria, saying that she wished she would be here during the second time of Christ's coming, so she can lay her crown at his feet. So I'm gonna read an insert right quick, because one of the reasons why the European powers wanted Africa is because they wanted spiritual domain and they wanted the land. So I'm gonna read this quick insert right quick. One day, the chaplain of good Queen Victoria preached a sermon on the second coming of Christ. As he spoke of that glorious event, he noticed tears in the eyes of the Queen. This is Queen Victoria. After the service, he approached her and asked, "Why did your Majesty weep as I spoke today?" "Oh," she said, "because I do hope that he will come in my day." "Why does your Majesty desire that he should come in your day?" the chaplain asked. "Oh, sir, that I may lay my crown at his feet." By Harold M.S. Richards, Signs of the Times, December 1st, 1931. I don't know how to say this name. Dale Galusha.
That's good enough.
But this lets you know that the Queen knows that they took the authority of what's it called?
Of the throne.
The authority of the throne, the majesty of the throne, as they sacked King Tedros in 1868. She knows she did wrong, And then she hopes that she will see the day that the second coming of Christ comes. So she can personally give that authority back. But we shall continue. So Ethiopia has the oldest complete Bible. That's one. Ethiopia is the only place where the throne of David is recognized. That's two. Also, the only place where kings sat on this throne and were recognized as the King of Kings in real life. But no one talks about East Africa, Ethiopia.
Prior to his death in 1908, Menelik basically wrote this and expressed this. Menelik has expressed a desire to have the Negroes from the southern states of America immigrate to and settle in his country, and has promised them good treatment and every possible advantage, and basically stated that no exodus from the south to Abyssinia has yet to happen. So Menelik spoke of us coming back, and then later Zatu, which is the empress, she expressed a calling for us to come back home as well. And she sent a letter that Marcus Garvey received, and he basically shared it with other African Americans throughout the United States. Because that was his whole movement, was to get us back to Africa, the Pan-African movement. And so now we're in these last days where this is occurring right before your eyes.
So now that we done talked about a few leaders who sat on the throne of David, and we also brought out a few of those. Come on
I
now.
yawn. Yeah.
All right, so cool. Now that we done brought out kings who sat on the throne of David and fought against the Western powers, also a few of those kings, a king and a queen who had callings of us to come back to Africa. Also a black leader like Marcus Garvey, who
Thanks.
also expressed that same letter from Queen Zatu for us to come back to Africa. Now it's time for us to talk about why we didn't hear these callings as African Americans. Also, why our Black African American groups, governmental groups, have been put to silence over time. This is where the COINTELPRO comes in. So we all know that we have a lot of black leaders that have been put to silence. Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party, because they don't want to see us rise. Now, let's look at the COINTELPRO, which was set up by the CIA, FBI. Who's the dude?
Um, what's the name? Hoover? J. Edgar Hoover?
J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover. So the COINTELPRO long range goals and prevention of a black messiah. We're gonna put this on the screen. Prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black. So the goals of the COINTELPRO: prevent the coalition of a militant black nationalist group. In unity, there is strength. In unity, there is strength. A truism that is no less valid for all its um, tritonness. Is that what they say?
Yep.
Tritonness. An effective coalition of black nationalist groups might be the first step toward a real Mao MAU, Black Revolutionary Army in America. The beginning of a true black revolution. Prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a messiah. He is the what did I say?
Where martyr is the martyr.
He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely,
Carmichael, yeah.
Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. So these are all examples of a possible Messiah that these people took down.
But remember too that their goal was to select our leaders for us. They didn't want them rising from amongst us. So a lot of the leaders that they selected basically had us walking in circles and not doing anything but marching and talking. No movement. So since Marcus Garvey, there has been no movement, period, to get us back to Africa.
So now is the time for us to reignite this movement. This movement has been reignited through a brother in our communities today. Now, in the Bible, we know that Christ is the true Redeemer who will come and bring us back together.
There you look to. So all the things that our black leaders couldn't do, God put it in the prophecy for the Messiah to do. And that's
Which
what happened in the last days. And these last days are here right now, where we're basically reigniting the call back to Africa so that we can restore a throne that would be beneficial to our people and unite Africa so that we could be the world power. Because all the world's resources are coming from Africa. There should be no reason why shouldn't be a superpower right now. And our cities in Africa look amongst the best in the world. And all of our children being fed and not hungry and walking the streets.
so, if you want true reparations, we have to stand and build the government. We have to stand and build the government so reparations can be properly given and properly given out. So, with that being said,
Africa is the place to be. There's no place like home. There's no place where you can actually go to and look around, see nothing but your people.
nothing like it, man. Nothing
Nothing
like
like it
it.
in the world.
So this is our first episode of the good news from Uncle Nephew. As we go on, these episodes will get better. This is just the first one. This is just the first one.
And we're going to clean this one up.
Definitely clean it up. But like, comment, subscribe. If you want more information on the things that we talked about,
Website.
you can go to the website at yajujudah.com. There's also a book with more of this information in it. And also for those who would like to stand up and do the work that we're doing, this will help you. The book is called The Return of the Brave Niggas. Niggas meaning kings. Kebra niggas meaning king of kings. So you want to get down with the underground sound?
Woo!
This is the place to be.
This is it, y'all.
But as we wrap it up,
From Ethiopia,
we gonna see y'all next time.
this is Nephew, K-Rev.
And there's You call him Ed.
Peace.
Hey.